So, we have a concept of order in the world where things that are organized and demarcated are ordered. There's a problem with this, however. I recently saw an image of a pine needle, or a pine branch, where they had the one pine branch which was nicely cut off of the tree and in its natural form, where you could see the little needles coming out and the sub branches branching off. And then they had that same pine branch where the sticks had been taken off, the needles had been taken off, and neatly organized in such a way that it was line by line, column by column, row by row. Now that's from a book. It's an art book called The Art of Tidying Up in German. It's a German book. And this book is filled and filled and filled with all images like this. All images of things reorganized, things organized in such a way as to where they are no longer in their natural way. And it's meant to be evocative of some kind of, I guess, abstraction of how we perceive things as tidied. Which drew me to this idea of organization not necessarily being order. When you see that pine branch, it looks chaotic. It's like a snowflake branching off and going in fractalized directions and all over the place. And so you'd think the more organized pine branch, where it's neat and tidy and ordered, would be ordered. But that's not the case, because when you pull the pines and spins and needles off of the stick, it's no longer able to receive sunlight. It's no longer able to photosynthesize. Think about it in terms of the human perspective. If you have a city which is square by square, perfect grids, and you live in the residential district, and the business you want to go to is in the commercial district, well, how do you get there? You have to walk line, 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 and then finally you end up in the commercial district and you're able to get your pop or whatever you are trying to buy. But that's not very human. That's not very ordered. That's not very efficient. What is order if not efficiency? That's not very efficient at all. How do you get to there in an ordered and efficient way that's going to cause traffic jams and blockages and is going to cause this vomitorium of people blocked all up in themselves? So what's more human, that or the branching and natural and efficient and walkable city? The city where it's not grids, but it's wavy lines and alleyways and side streets and paths. It's chaotic, but it's efficient. And it puts the residential district nearer to the businesses. It's ordered. This, I believe, has kind of an origin in Aristotelian philosophy, which Thomas Aquinas made commentary on, about the ultimate order is the natural purpose of things, that which most expediently fulfills the natural, divinely ordained purpose of something. The way we live in this hyper-stratified, hyper-demarcated, hyper-organized world is contrary to our natural, divinely ordained purpose, our natural, divinely ordained existence. We are organized, but we live in grid cities, we live in concrete blocks, we live in apartment complexes, which make it more difficult for us to walk, which make it more difficult for us to fulfill our natural purposes and our natural abilities to get places, to do things, to work, to lift, to climb. You can't do any of these things. You can't build a farm in a suburb. You can't go hunting without a license. Is this order? Is this order? How is it that regulation and demarcation is more befitting to order than the natural order? Is this natural for us to be living this way? Is it natural for us to have insoles in our feet so that we can walk on asphalt when we didn't even have lining on our shoes before because the ground softened and the ground, it's like hiking boots. Have you ever worn hiking boots on asphalt before? It's fucking painful. Pardon my French, but it is, I did that one time, blisters, it was awful. So we need to wear running shoes, we need to wear insoles, we need to wear XYZ thing. We can't just walk somewhere naturally. Lord forbid you try to walk somewhere on your bare feet. Everything is organized in such a way that we are unable to live in such a way that people have lived for thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of years. So then people have disorders. People have disorders. When you live in a disordered society, the people who inhabit that society naturally become disordered. Because individuals are merely expressions of the whole of which they are a part. Ultimately, individualism is not necessarily a thing, just as collectivism is not necessarily a thing. We have this belief that there's this innate dichotomy between individualism and collectivism. That you either have the right to live on a farm in your own way and live with your family out in the woods, Ted Kaczynski style, or you have to live in a communist, Soviet, brutalist apartment block. These are your only two options. But is that really the case? I mean, if you look at the family, if you had a collectivist family, then the mother, the father, the children, they'd all have to unilaterally agree on every quibbling issue, whether or not you take one or two cookies out of the cookie jar and feed them to Timmy. Nothing would ever get done. But if you have individualism, well, Timmy can go run off into the woods and run away from the family and starve to death because mother won't be able to feed him. And then mother goes and sleeps with 30 men, and father goes and sleeps with his secretary, and etc., etc., etc. It's chaos. It's chaos. But then you have the real family. The real family. Holistic. Where the father is the head of the household. The mother is the custodian of the household, the caretaker, the steward, the woman of the house, the lady of the house, the one who is in charge. And then you have the children who offer their own insights and their own joys and their own perspectives and their own. But at the same time, they are subservient and they're loyal and they are eager and listful to their parents. They listen. Not always very willingly, but ultimately that will be the end result, is the children are going to listen, Lord forbid otherwise. So, what is civilization? What is a nation, if not a very grand extended family? So why would we have either individualism, which as we established is not very ideal for a family structure, or collectivism, which as we established is not very ideal for a family structure? Well, either of those two things in the dichotomy would, well, lead to the world we live in today. You go to a socialist communist country and it's chaos. It's chaos. It's organized chaos. I think I once heard the term anarcho-tyranny, and much the same in our individualist societies, Canada, America, the Western world in general. We have this same anarcho-tyranny where the government enforces the laws only to a certain few, and the rest are the bludgeons of the state, which the state cannot do itself. That's chaos. That's chaos. Where we can't live according to the family, where we can't live according to our divinely ordained natural purpose. Early on in this channel's history, I uploaded a video where I walked. I walked from my house to my grandparents' house, who they live in the country. And it was a long walk. It was a long walk. And I did so to prove that I was still capable of my initial human natural abilities. Which I succeeded. I succeeded in that. But ultimately, it came with great difficulty. Not as a result of anything to do with my natural impediments or anything like that. It was merely because of the impediments and the obstructions that we have imposed on this world. The highways and the cars whizzing by. I can't walk to my grandparents' house because there's no path. I have to weather being nearly struck by a semi-truck in order to visit my own grandparents without owing money to an insurance company and to a car manufacturer, etc., etc. How is that fair? How is that order? How is it order that I need to devote my time and energy, my wealth and labor to someone else just to see my own grandparents? I have to. I have no choice. Elsewise, I go to prison or threaten my own life. That is not order. That is chaos. Ultimately, just like how the pine needle, when torn apart and laid out in rows and columns, cannot photosynthesize and receive sunlight and turn that into the sugars that it needs for the plant to eat. We, as human beings, when torn apart and put in rows and columns and put in large apartment complexes, packed into cities, forced to pay our paychecks to insurance companies and to the car manufacturers and to the government and our taxes and to union dues, which I don't even benefit from because some lady had $100,000 in college tuition fees that she paid for from a government grant, and then she went and she got a degree in accounting, she got a degree in typesetting, and now she gets to work for the union and she gets the benefits, she gets the laureates. But I am the one who's working, and I am the one who is putting in the physical labor, actually contributing gross value to the society in which I live in. But how is any of these things, how is my labor being taken from me and put into the pockets of another, and in a society in which I have no choice but to do so? How is that order? That is chaos. Community and helping each other is necessary. God demands it. God demands charity. God demands that you take your surplus and you devote it to another. But that's just it. It's surplus. I, despite the way I dress, don't actually have that much surplus. I'll be entirely candid. And yet I still pay my taxes. I still pay my union dues. I still put my money in the pockets of the middle-class woman who went to university and got her typesetting degree, etc., etc. And eventually I know that some of the money I put away in the government will be given back to me through pensions, etc. And I am a cog in this disordered and chaotic machine, and I am in my own ways disordered as an individual because of this way that society is organized and how the individual is the reflection of the society at whole. But I can acknowledge that it's disordered. I can acknowledge that it's chaotic, that it's a anarcho-tyranny in which we live. Anyway, just some little ruminations that I've had. And I think it's important to dwell on these things. It's important to look at the natural world and think of our natural purpose and dwell on whether or not the problems that we face are of our own failings, which many are, undoubtedly, or whether problems we face are as a result of the disorder in which we are immersed. Have a good day, and God bless.